Welcome to the Living Artist Podcast. I'm your host, Preston M. Smith. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Living Artist Podcast. I'm Preston M. Smith, at PMS Artwork everywhere on internet land and socials. I want to thank you for landing on this podcast. Whether you're a professional artist, just getting started in the art world, a collector of art, or just consider yourself a creative person, this podcast has something for you. I like to think of it as a fun way to rant and talk to other creative people about living the life of an artist, surviving and getting ahead in the art world, and enjoying your life. But most importantly, not waiting until you're dead to make it happen. All right, let's get started.
Day-o, beside day-o, daylight come and anyone go home. Stack 6 foot, 7 foot, 8 foot bunch. Daylight come and anyone go home. A beautiful bunch, a ripe banana.
We're here for your daughter, Chuck.
Oh, God. Okay, I'll stop singing.
Not a bad idea. We don't want to get sued. And for anybody who's been alive in the past 30, 40 years, you should know what that song means. Aside from Harry Belafonte, who is a genius, it means only one thing, and that is Beetlejuice. And yes, Beetlejuice came out this weekend, and it was a long time coming, 36 years in the making. And man, the first Beetlejuice was such a big staple in my life. I watched that thing so many times, probably 20, 30 times, and I could quote it, and I love it. And it's always like shaped me a little bit as an artist. I used to draw stuff like Tim Burton used to draw. I used to draw a bunch of like monsters and skeletons and dark stuff. And I was just obsessed with it. I loved Beetlejuice, and I loved Tim Burton's style in general. And I thought I would use the sequel coming out today as a little bit of inspiration for an episode about, yes, maybe sequels and artistry in general and creating an atmosphere. So let's start with my wife and I we braved the 113 degree weather in the valley here this weekend, and we snuck away and watched Beetlejuice, and I couldn't wait. 36 years later, obviously I was like worried. I didn't want it to fall on its face. I wanted it to live up to the original. I knew it couldn't 100% live up to the original, but I thought, Tim Burton, Michael Keaton, Winona Ryder, Catherine O'Hara, all these people are in it, and they have to be able to at least do it justice. So we went in, we watched the Beetlejuice, and the whole time I was just squirming in my seat, and I was like, man, is it just the heat? Is it what's going on here? I've had a lot of weird symptoms with all my crazy ailments I've had recently, so I was like, maybe I'm just having some weird skin problems. And I was telling my wife, I was like, I feel like something's crawling on me. And so we watched Beetlejuice, and at the end, the lights came up, and we looked down, and there's ants all over the floor, and they're crawling all over us. They've been on us the whole time. They're just like crawling all over the seats. And I'm like, oh man, I'm not crazy. So at least that was good, but it kind of ruined our experience a little bit. But Beetlejuice, I'm not going to ruin anything. Spoiler alert, there's no spoilers in this episode of the Living Artist Podcast, but I would say go see it. I would say if you're interested, if you like the first Beetlejuice, if you love Tim Burton, if you love any of these people, Michael Keaton, Winona Ryder, Catherine O'Hara, all these people, even like Justin Theroux's really good in it. I would say go see it. It's worth it. It's fun. It's going to be a mixed bag of reviews, of course, but I enjoyed it, and I want to see it again sometime when there are ants not crawling all over me and my wife, but we enjoyed it. But I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the things in Beetlejuice and in Tim Burton style, and even Michael Keaton and Winona Ryder. For example, it made me reflect on some of the stuff being an artist, as far as like, maybe you're commissioned to do a piece. Maybe you're commissioned to recreate a piece that you've created in the past, and you're like, oh man, how am I going to recapture this? Because it's not just the same as paint by numbers, as you know, as an artist. So many people just think you can just churn these out, but really it's so much deeper than that. It's a feeling that you were in. It's a mood. It's a mindset. Sometimes it's not very easy, especially if it's an abstract piece or it's a pop surrealist piece or even just a photorealistic piece. It's going to be almost impossible to completely duplicate that. So the question is, do you want to duplicate that completely? And I would argue, no, you do not. So whenever I talk to a customer or a collector about a piece that they're inspired by that sparks a commission, or repeat style commission, I always tell them, look, I'm going to do my best to recreate the style and the energy and the feeling and the mood and the emotion that went behind this piece. But I want you to leave it up to me and trust me in the fact that I'm going to create something that is unique for you, that is new, that is fresh, but it kind of retains a little bit of the feeling and mood and emotion behind the original piece. And yes, it's going to look somewhat like it. It's going to feel like it. It's going to have that. If I do my job right, it's going to have all of that infused in there. And that's what I kind of felt with the Tim Burton thing. I'm not going to tell you anything about the new movie, but it really was an updated version, which of course is 36 years later. Things are going to be different. It's not the same as the 80s, when the first one came out, or late 80s. And you shouldn't expect it to be. You should expect it to have some different stuff. And like technology has changed, and like all of the CGI effects have changed. And, Tim Burton's changed. Michael Keaton's changed. Winona Ryder's changed. Catherine O'Hara's changed. But I was listening to an interview with Michael Keaton, and he was talking about how he's trying to get his makeup right, and how, it was getting close, and the hair was getting close, and the mold on his face was getting close, that whole like Beetlejuice feel. And, he's like, something's just not right. He kept talking to the makeup artist. And then he realized that it wasn't the makeup or the hair or the costume that wasn't completely right. It was him. He was like, he had to just get back into that character. He had to kind of capture that feeling and that essence of what he was going for the first time. And once he did that, everything kind of snapped into place. And I thought that was pretty poignant. I love Michael Keaton, and I'm sure it was the same for all the other actors too. You have to find that essence. You have to get back into that mood and that, capture that or recapture that magic of the first time by getting back into the essence of that and getting into the feeling of that, so it is authentic and true. And that's what we're doing as artists. That's what we're doing with our work. That's what we're doing. Anytime we're doing a series of pieces or a commission, maybe you have to do like a really large piece for a hotel, or this is like something outdoors, or it's a commission for like a city project or something. And they really want to commission you to capture the essence of what you're doing as an artist with certain pieces and blow it up on this huge scale. It's going to be different. Obviously, things don't translate 100%, but that's why I thought this was so important to talk about. And that's why watching this, it sparked a little bit of this interest in this episode today, because I think it's very similar. All of us artists, whether you're a director, an actor, a musician, whether you're Danny Elfman trying to kind of change his score a little bit, which he did. He adapted his score. Still had a lot of the themes of the first one, but he adapted the score a little bit and, freshened it up and brought, yes, the essence of the first one, but something new to the table, which I think it would have been stale if all they did was just rehash everything exactly the same way and try to recapture something. Anytime you just try to recapture exactly the feeling of something, an original piece of art, it's going to fall flat on its face. You have to capture the essence, but then leave room for whatever's happening to you as the artist in the moment to kind of take on new life. And I think that's what the movie did better than anything. It wasn't a perfect movie, but it was a good piece of art, and it was satisfying because they did that. And I love that about it. And I love that about being an artist, when you can kind of get back in to this character or this feeling, this atmosphere, this emotion, and then take that on and put that into the new piece and allow for things to change and allow for, your mood, your atmosphere, all the stuff that you've learned over the years to change and evolve a bit. Hopefully you'll be able to create a piece that's even better, but it retains a little bit of the core essence of the original piece or series that somebody is commissioning you to do. All right. So in tackling this, for yourself and for the customer, the client, the collector, whatever you want to call it, depending on what you're doing it for, somebody's home or a hotel or like a government building, whatever it is, whatever you're trying to recreate or trying to produce something new while retaining a little bit of the core essence of the original, you want to first slip into that old shoe like I'm talking about. Get into that old character, get into that old feeling you had. Like if I'm trying to recreate a piece, let's say from my dark period where I was going through a lot of craziness and I was drinking too much and I was a little depressed and, I was doing a little bit of the tortured artist thing at the time. If I'm trying to get back into that and recreate something from that era, me being this person 20 years later who's now, happier, more well-adjusted in my life and in my art, all the sickness and stuff aside for the moment, but just being a person who's older and who's learned more and like has a wife and has a house now and has a studio and is has learned so much about myself and is comfortable in my own skin more. How do you recreate that kind of angst that you had from that era? Well, that is a good question. And that is something that I would say is a trick that we've talked about in this podcast before. And it's something where you have to be able to revisit it, not get back into that, you don't want to get back into that dark period, right? But you can revisit it. You can put on the music that you were listening to in that era. You can maybe even go revisit places that you were living in or like haunting at that time, bars or whatever. You can talk to people. You can meditate and visualize, the places that you were painting in. Like I was painting in this tiny little kitchen of my studio apartment that I'd have to build up every day. I can start envisioning that. I was like watching a lot of Basquiat at the time and Pollock, and I was listening to a lot of Tom Waits, and maybe I was reading a little Bukowski at the time. You just get into that, you slip it on like an old shoe. Revisit this era in that time. You put on the music, you get in the studio, you get into that spot, and then you do your best to recreate that environment, that mood, that emotional core, but not try to completely replicate the painting. I'm telling you, the essence and the emotions behind it, the angst behind it are much more important to recreate than the actual piece itself. You're never going to recreate the texture perfectly or the color tone perfectly, or you're never going to, like if you're a realistic painter, you're never going to get just, the lighting perfect and the perspective perfect. And you're never going to get, all the little, I've recreated, when I did the Obama gig, I had to paint 13 paintings of the president and recreate them. And I did a pretty good job. They got pretty close, but each one was different. And they are going to be a little different. But if you're revisiting something from decades ago, then yeah, it's going to be even more difficult. So trying to find that atmosphere and that emotion that you were feeling at the time, the angst, the music, the places you were, the people you knew, the memories that you had at that time, that's going to be the most important thing. And then you can slip into that feeling and visit it for a couple sessions in your studio. And then when you're done with that, you can just discard it. You can take off the shoe, you can take off the clothes, you can get back into your life. You don't have to let that be pervasive and now take on your new life. No, you can just step into it. You can revisit it. And I do that all the time. It doesn't even have to be for a commission. If I want to revisit like a feeling that I think is powerful, something that is like a trick for me to create better, if I want to like tap into that, I now have gotten to the place where I can access that, almost like an actor can access emotions. I can access that atmosphere, that angst, or whatever feeling I'm trying to capture by revisiting it, because I know these periods in my life. I know the music, I know the atmosphere so well that it's pretty easy now for me to flip that switch. So if that's something you haven't done yet, I would just say, use some of these tricks, meditate on it a little bit, learn how to recapture these emotions and the atmosphere and the core feeling of that time. And I think you'll be surprised. I think you'll surprise yourself at what you can tap into. And it opens up a whole new window into your creative ability and capacity. And once you do that, you're like, wow, what else can I tap into? And then the sky's the limit. So that becomes exciting. So that's the first one. And the second one is dealing with the client or the collector or the person who's commissioning the piece, or, even if it's just something that you're doing for yourself. Let's just say for the sake of this podcast episode, you're being commissioned by somebody who really loves a piece and wants you to recreate it. Let's say you've sold a piece in the past and you have pictures of it on your website and they're like, I want this. And you're like, I don't have this anymore, but I can recreate something similar to it. So it is your job as an artist and a professional to convey to the collector that you are not really in the business of replicating pieces, but that you can capture the feeling, the essence of the piece, and try to go for something similar. And you might want to even urge that person to be like, well, how can I make this more something that fits into your lifestyle? Like, let's say you're doing a portrait of somebody or it's a pop surrealist piece. How can you make that morph into their world a little bit? Like have something that is a touchstone for them that would just really resonate with them. So you can use the essence of the piece from back then, but also tie it into them moving forward. So you're creating a new piece, which is impactful for them and for you, and you're honoring the essence of the original piece as well. That's what I would say. And then just talk to them and make sure that they understand that it's not going to be a replica. Make sure you understand and tell them, look, just have an open mind about this and trust the process and trust that this is going to be a piece that I'm going to pour my heart and soul into, and I'm going to do the best I can to capture this essence, but I'm going to tailor it towards, being something that is a unique piece, which will be imbued with a new energy. It's not going to be a stale energy of a replica. It's going to be the new energy of a new piece that's perfect for that person and that collector. So it's up to you to convey that for them. And I've never had a person push back on this. If somebody really wants a replica and they just want me to churn out something, I'm just going to probably say, well, maybe I'm not the artist for the job, or, look, I can get you a print of the original. That's easy. I have a print service on my website. I can get you a print of the original, and then everybody's happy. So that's that. I mean, it's a unique challenge. It's something that we all have to deal with as artists at some point, and it's fun. And like sometimes you want to revisit that. And with Tim Burton and Beetlejuice, these people just wanted to recreate this. They've been dealing with it for decades, trying to find the right script and trying to find the right time to do it. And when they finally did, they jumped on it. And that's fun for us as artists too, even if you're doing it for yourself. If you want to recapture or revisit a style or a series that you did in the past and you want to do it justice, it's so much fun. So these are just some tricks, and some things to think about as you want to get back into this style and, do it justice, but also do something really impactful that is kind of new and fresh at the same time. So hopefully this is something that was interesting for you. Obviously, I recommend going out and see the movie. If you haven't seen the original, where have you been? Go back and watch the original Beetlejuice. And as an artist, just open your mind up to Tim Burton, because I think Tim Burton is one of the most creative people. He's also an artist, a visual artist, a painter, and, an illustrator in his own right. He's really, talented. So he has a lot to offer us from an inspirational standpoint as artists. So highly recommend it. Highly recommend delving into some Tim Burton stuff and to see a little bit of Beetlejuice. Feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions about anything. If you like the episode, wonderful. Feel free to leave a comment or a review on the podcast if you like the podcast. Other than that, I'm going to sign off for the day. Hopefully this heat is about ready to pass. It's been 113, 112, 108, 109, 107 for the past 5 days. So hopefully that is coming to an end and we'll get back into some cool weather soon. And yeah, look forward to seeing you on the next episode, everybody. Take care of yourselves. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Shake, 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 Sonora, shake your body line. Shake, 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 Sonora, shake it all the time. Jump in the line, rock your body on time. Okay, I believe you.
This has been the Living Artist Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. I just want you to know that I appreciate you being here, and I'm grateful to be in your ears. Your art and creative life on this planet is meaningful, so thank you for sharing it with me. If you like this podcast, whatever platform you're listening to it on, please subscribe and share it with your friends. You can also leave me a positive review to show your support. This helps me to reach more people with the algorithmic magic and keep the show going strong. If you want to see more of what I do and check out the art that I create, you can visit my website at www.pmsartwork.com or follow me on social media everywhere at PMS Artwork. That's it for now. See you back here next time.